Welcome to a JavaScript digital clock tutorial. In this video, we are going to create a simple yet stylish digital clock using JavaScript. So without wasting time, let's dive in. To begin, let's talk about the HTML part. Our HTML is pretty minimal. Inside the head, we include a link to Google Fonts for a custom font to give our clock a stylish look. The real magic happens in the body section, where we define three key elements: the clock, display, a background layer, and a floating box for the seconds. These div elements will be used to style the clock, add a gradient background, and animate the seconds indicator. Now that our HTML is in place, let's move on to CSS for the design and styling. This is where things start getting fun. First, we set the body background color to dark shade to make our clock pop. Next, we apply a classy font and set its attributes for a great look. We set a heavy font weight and a normal font style so that time should be easily visible to the viewer. Next, we style the clock itself. We give it a large, bold font centered in the middle of the screen, assigning flex property to its display. Applying center property to justify content and align items sets the content inside the clock to center. Assigning absolute property to position brings clock to top left corner of screen. Then we bring it to center by moving it from top and left half of the screen. The clock mover slightly towards right and bottom, which is handled by using translate property. This property exactly centers the clock onto the screen. Now, after fitting the clock to the center, we set its height and width. After giving size to clock, we add some styling such as color and background color so that it should be visible. Giving white color and dark background make it easy for the viewer to watch time easily. We built a stylish outline for the clock structure by using clip path property. This property cuts the edges of rectangle and make it some sort of octagonal shape. We use a large Z index to show clock on an upper layer. After giving final touches to take clock styling, we move forward to the next part, which seems amazing. This element actually builds a stylish background and outline for the clock. Same process is repeated to set the position of background styling element as done for the clock earlier. We also add a clip path of same style to the clock. This abandons the outline to be rectangular, else made it same as the structure and shape of clock to fit exactly according to clock's shape. Notice that we give a less Z index to the background style as compared to the clock, which shifts the background style to the back of clock. Same amount of height and width is given to this element. The most important part of styling comes next. We use a gradient image as background, which gives it a vibrant, colorful look, making its style colorful and bright. Little amount of padding is given for the outline to be visible outside the clock borders. The next part is considered as the main functioning and uniqueness of the whole project. It is a floating element which displays seconds in itself. The floating div float around the clock infinitely, indicating the seconds. This is done by using animations, which helps the div element to move in different directions. This element has also given a clip path to make its look similar to the clock. Some properties of positioning are used to align the content in the div to center. After giving size to the div, a vibrant gradient image is set to its background, which gives it a stylish and glowing look. After setting its color and font size, we move forward towards the animation of this div. This animation simply runs in a linear pattern for the timestamp of 60 seconds, after which it repeats infinitely, in loop, which is actually the working of the seconds in clock. At the first stage of animation, when it is not started, there is no rotation of div element. The div is positioned at the top left corner of clock. In the next stage of animation, the div element starts moving from its initial position towards the top right corner of the clock. During this phase, no rotation of div element occurs. In the next stage of animation, when div reaches to the top right corner of clock, it is rotated 90 degrees so that it will move along the right side from top to bottom. In the next phase of the animation, the div element is moved backward from right bottom edge towards the left bottom edge of the clock. The div element is again rotated to 180 degrees at the start of this phase. In the final phase of animation, the div element is rotated to 270 degrees. The div element is moved upward from bottom left corner to top left corner of the clock from where it had started its journey, and this process continues. After completing our styling part, now we are going to add functionality in our code using JavaScript. The first thing the code does is the use of setInterval function. This function repeats a block of code at regular intervals. In this case, it runs the enclosed code every 1000 milliseconds or every second. So, this is essentially creating a clock that updates once per second. So, we're calling setInterval, which takes two arguments. The first argument is a function that gets executed repeatedly. The second argument is 1000, which means it updates every second. Inside the function, the first thing we do is create a new date object. This object represents the current date and time the moment the function is called. getHours gives us the current hour, getMinutes returns the current minutes, getSeconds returns the current seconds. Now, we want to make sure the time looks nice, meaning we want digits for hours, minutes, and seconds. For example, if the time is 5:05, we want it to show 5:05 instead of 5 to 5. Here's what's happening. We check if hours, minutes, or seconds are less than 10. If they are, we add a leading 0, so it turns 5 into 05. This is a nice touch to make the time look standard. Next, we build the time string. This combines the hours and minutes in a readable format with a colon in between. We're not including seconds in this string because we'll handle seconds separately later. Now, let's show the time on the page. Here, we're updating the inner middle of the element with the ID clock. The time variable, which we created earlier, will be displayed in that element, showing the current hours and minutes. Now, we get into the most interesting part of the code, changing the background image based on the time of day. If the hour is between 6 a.m. and 7 a.m., it's sunrise time. So, the background image will change to a sunrise image. We also add some properties and style to the image so that it fit exactly into the clock in the right way. Background size cover ensures that the background image covers the entire element without stretching awkwardly. We add another property, opacity, for better visualization of time. This property makes the background slightly transparent, so it doesn't overpower any text or other elements on the clock. Now we check for the other conditions for time, as we checked before for the sunrise. If the time is between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m., we display a daytime image. If the time is between 6 p.m. and 7 p.m., it shows a sunset. From 7 p.m. onwards, i.e., night time, it changes to a night image. Every time a condition is met, the background image of the clock changes. It gives the clarity of time for the reader and better user experience. Finally, we display the seconds. There's a separate element with the class float that's used to show the seconds. The clock keeps updating every second, providing a real-time display of time. It also changes the background based on the time of day. From sunrise to sunset to night, the background image will change automatically. The dynamic backgrounds make it visually appealing and give a sense of time beyond just numbers. The conditions are straightforward and easy to follow. Depending on the hour, it decides which background image to show. Thanks for watching this tutorial. If you want any other stylish and functional web page, don't hesitate to drop your idea in the comments. Don't forget to review us for more easy and stylish tutorials.